The city of Chicago is in crisis mode right now. They're going broke from the migrant crisis. Chicago, honestly, is a city in a fantastic location. You know, like all the stock trades and all the options trades are all routed to Chicago. That's why Chicago is still like the financial hub, but many of these corporations and financial institutions are thinking about pulling out. Chicago is becoming more and more of a lousy place to live and do business with increasing crime. They're going broke from the migrant crisis. Seems like the Chicago residents could just never catch a break. In fact, recently the tourism industry is slightly taking a hit as well. Check this out. Chicago can't catch a break even in terms of fresh produce. Chicago has new restrictions aimed at blocking dollar stores from oversaturating neighborhoods, undercutting grocers, and creating food deserts. Now, there's a few things you need to know about this. First of all, I don't really think it's because of the dollar stores that is forcing many fresh produce stores to close down. It's mostly because of the crime. The crime rate is so high. Walmart can't survive, Whole Foods can't survive, and Trader Joe is like, I'm definitely not opening here ever. So Chicago right now is taking a huge hit. And I don't want to put all the heat on Chicago. It's also places like San Francisco. It's also places like New York City. It's also places in many really bad cities with high crime. So right now, many of these dollar stores are kind of forced to open fresh produce sections if they want to open more and more of these dollar stores next to each other. So I guess this is some sort of like way to get these dollar stores to sell fresh produce, essentially. But it's also very hard, right? Because the margins on that isn't really that great. And not to mention, the shoplifting in Chicago is so crazy high. I mean, they're starting to lock up even like food cans. It's that bad. And look at this. Walmart closes 4 Chicago locations. Residents are having fewer shopping options. And I don't want to just put this on Chicago again, but if you look at Oakland, the same thing. They had to close down the first In-N-Out ever, not because of business, but because of shoplifting and theft. Walmart over there closed as well. But for Chicago to get closed down 4 locations is a really insane number. This is the most out of any other city and any other states. You could add up numerous different states in the US and they wouldn't even close down 4 locations, let alone 4 locations in one city whose population is only 2.1 million people. This is how bad it's getting in Chicago, and law enforcement, they either don't care or they're overstretched, especially the whole migrant crisis right now. Chicago is super duper broke right now. And look at this. Chicago's migrant crisis raises questions of equality. And one of the biggest things of migrant crisis is the Chicago domestic homeless populations gets little to none. You literally have people sleeping on the bridges in tents in this intensive Chicago winter. Are they getting any sort of help? Absolutely not. Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago is spending most of his money on the migrant crisis, getting 50 to 70,000 people, and it's still increasing every single day. The city is spending so much money on the migrant crisis. What about the domestic homeless population? Well, they basically are forgotten about. This is why if you see some of the interviews on the streets, you actually have a lot of people who are homeless said that they're voting for Trump. They're voting Republican. They're no longer Democrat. In Chicago, in the South Side, you got whole entire communities whose 97% Democrats are now slowly turning Republican. And those numbers are getting higher every single day. And this is happening to many sanctuary cities. So much so that even places like New York City, they had to cut migrant spending because everyone was just getting so fed up. And this is really becoming a big issue for these big cities. I mean, it's not me saying it, guys. It's like the S&P Global Ratings says it's causing massive budget constraints on these major cities. City-owned grocery stores could be coming to Chicago food deserts. Now, are they happening? No. They've been talking about this for several months. Honestly, opening a city-owned grocery store is going to lose money. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. But when you're spending like $100 to $200, $300 million on the migrant crisis, maybe spare just $5 million to open a couple of these grocery stores. Yes, they lose money, but at least for the regular residents of these areas to at least get some fresh produce and a little bit of a healthier option. And this is actually pretty nice to see this. We do have a small business grocery store opening up in Chicago's west suburbs. This is awesome. This is what I'm talking about. And this is like one of the first grocery stores opening up. This is not state-owned. This is private-owned from a small business owner. This is what I'm talking about. And hopefully, good luck to this person opening up this grocery store. Hopefully it does well, but let's see what happens, right? It's going to be very difficult. Grocery stores don't have the best profit margins. And like I said, crime is very high in many Chicago neighborhoods. So let's see what happens to this grocery store. Obviously, wish the best luck to the owners. But right now, we're still getting at the whole topic of the city-owned grocery store. Many people are frustrated because you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on the migrant crisis. People, like I said, are complaining. They're like, why can't you open just one or two or three grocery stores that are city-owned? You don't even have to spend that much money either. So this is why everyone's kind of frustrated with the Chicago situation, because it seems kind of like the priorities are not really straight these days. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below. How do you guys feel about Chicago? And do you guys think Chicago will solve the food desert issue?